To adopt the agenda as is.
May I just add that I would just like to have an update on the bus accidents.
So 3D maybe? Okay.
To amend the agenda to include that.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
Motion to adopt the amended agenda.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Okay, our business, we had some people with some questions about the proposed budget. Anybody would like to speak?
Just a second. One of the questions that I had is that it seems to me that we are adding a position, adding the person who's going to be the titles.
The federal
Federal.
programs director.
Right. And we never really discussed adding that position in a regular board meeting. It was mentioned, but we never really discussed it. So
So I thought that it was. I was pretty sure that it was mentioned and voted on. So when the board on the February 13th board meeting approved the online school director position, that created a position, right? That movement by the board on February 13th created a position. So
For my tech.
yeah. So that was the motion to create a position at the district office or that management level. So the way HR works is sometimes you move people around based on fit, right? And we felt, Larry and I in discussions, felt like he was the guy to do that because he had all the background on the athletic school, which meant that a lot of his duties would be split among several of us. Me with some of them, Matt Murray, and then Matt took some of mine. So the position that was created was approved by the board, but in the movement, I see how that can be confusing. So I tried to confuse it. I don't know, or tried to explain it, but obviously haven't done well. Hawkins, you have a better explanation?
For just the whole movement, or the question being we never discussed the federal programs director.
Well,
I think we were all a little bit confused because, well, for one, you sent the email out that said the board was aware and we approved of these changes. But the only discussion that we had is that individual would be moved to my tech. And we didn't really discuss any of the other stuff. I think that's where some of the confusion here it is.
I thought I had communicated it, clearly I haven't. So if the board is still confused, I didn't. So once the board approves a position, the assignment of responsibilities and the movement of people is my responsibility. And so I wasn't trying to be tricky in doing that. I was just trying to fulfill the needs that I saw the district had at the time. So in the creation of the position, that created the position by board action, and then the movement around was clearly not communicated well by me. So I did not mean to be tricky or confuse or act like we didn't need board input, but that is my role in the district, is to assign the management of the positions created by the board, assign the duties created by board action. So
I have to admit, I do have a problem with shifting the 1C to Mr. Murray because he doesn't really have the background in this. This has been going on for a year, a little more than a year. And this is a complex thing. And I truly believe that the 1C portion should stay. under your supervision.
So those are good thoughts, thank you. So just some thoughts about that. In my mind, I think there's been some, and it's not irreparable damage, but there are damaged relationships with some of our local districts who are in the consortium with us. There's some really tough feelings between some the Adrian superintendent, the Bell superintendent, and me, and so I felt like having a new person coming in there without any history of frustrated feelings would be a good start. I would still be advising Matt. It's not like I'm washing my hands of it. We will be working in the same way that Mr. Hawkins is over the transportation department now and is going to be handing that off to me next year. He's still going to be available to consult with me because he knows a lot more about it than I do. So that's kind of how duties and responsibilities are split up. But I hear what you're saying. I'm not trying to wash my hands of it. In fact, we still don't have a response from ODE regarding the management of the program next year. ODE may say, because of whatever has happened here, we want the ESD to run the consortium. It may go to Mark Redmond. They've spoken with Mark Redmond about this at the ESD. So, but there's been no decision made. So
if that happens, what do we do with Matt's position?
there's still a lot of other federal programs that they'll be managing.
And those other federal programs are for one.
He does some, I do quite a few.
2, 4.
3, 4,
4A.
yeah, even Title 9, like all those.
Title IX, which gets into a lot of athletics as well as
In fact, the federal government just came out with a statement on Title IX. They're making some changes. And they were asking for advisory or for comments.
that is an influx. That is a
It's very much in
title influx, which is going to be changing. It requires somebody to be dedicated to that. So those are good questions, and I hope you understand. I mean,
Well, another question I have, and it's just a question, I'm not saying anything we've done right or wrong, but what's your process for coming up with a salary for these positions?
that's good. That's a good question. So they are civil. So with Mr. Murray, the discussion has been you're going to keep the same days, you're going to keep the same salary. So even though it's a district office position, at many districts, they have pay scales for administrators. We do not have that here. I've looked at some of those at districts around, but none of them are comparable to us, right? There are not administrative pay scales unless it's a large district. Either where I came from in Utah, they have them, in Portland, and the western side of Oregon, they have them. So we do want to be competitive in the same way that I made some adjustments last year to our confidential staff. That's Crystal and Megan to make them more competitive. So that was a process of looking in the local area, mainly in the local area, but because you need to be competitive. I mean, last week when we had our budget board meeting, there was a lot of compliments given to Crystal for the work she does, and rightly so. And in order to keep a person of that caliber, you have to be competitive, right? I mean, I don't know what the industry is offering. I hope Crystal's not looking. Maybe I do. I don't know. But we want to keep the work that Megan does and Christy and.
But I guess, like, since you're using Crystal as an example, we've seen her performance in the position that she's in, and that merits, the pay scale that you're giving her. We don't know what the performance is here, and it seems like he's already kind of right there at the top level of salary.
He will stay at that where he is. He's going to be, because there's not a pay scale to so he'll get his percentage raised like all the other superintendents, principals, administrators. So we'll keep the same number of days.
We can't do this.
No, that's a typical contract. You can freeze, but you can't reduce.
Accounting for either thing. until he, would that be a motion to freeze it until he shows his work?
Board would have to take action on that.
And what is his schedule?
What is it, 220, 25? 225 day contract.
So he has the summers off.
225 is the same, I think, as Gina White. It's a district office. It's mostly a July off. It's an 11-month position, but he has agreed to come in July as needed.
So I think part of what my understanding with some of this concern is that we know that we have some shortfalls. We are looking at potentially down the road not having money for some of these things. And I think that is kind of some of our concern is like, we know this is coming up. Why are we adding when you should be tightening down? So how is that going to be addressed in the future, like with future spending?
Moving forward, we do that. So that is why we started the online school. And as Crystal has explained, the online school money can't be set in a separate account all its own as part of the general fund. So unless the board specifies to me projects that you would like that money spent for, we can earmark it for things in the general fund. But there's not a separate fund for it. So we created the online school to be able to maintain services to our students. And so those are really good questions, but the question is moving forward into a potential budget cutting circumstance. We're trying to maintain as much as we can. Now, if board would like to see cuts to help us prepare for future, we can do that. We think we're in a good position with the online school, but it may be a year away. I know that neighboring districts, some are giving very large raises, and some are in very large deficits within just a few hours drive of us in our region here. I don't want to mention names on public ways, but some are having to cut because of overcommitments on pay raises without the long-term ability to meet those commitments.
And I think that, we think of the online school, right? This is another school, right? So we're not creating more costs in the district office. There's me, I'm out of there now, right? And that's it. So that's a one-to-one switch. I know our new building that if we continue growing next year will be our second biggest school, right? And so we have to, just because I'll be housed up here doesn't, and obviously helping facilitate, that's my position. And so we have to think about that. It's not, we have all this up here. I'm removed from that. I'm here. And, and there's a lot of my job is still helping assist and, do those things. But that's where we have to kind of get that out of that, our mindset, and think it's a one-to-one swap.
Is there any place that we can combine job duties potentially to maybe prevent some of like maybe your
VPAD.
like middle school VPAD type thing, I don't know. That was just kind of something that
Yeah, to save costs.
The middle school AD runs with the principal.
Luke is the athletic
Yeah.
director.
No,
So
the
30
high
minutes.
school, the high school AD.
Oh, and high school
vice
AD
principal.
does. Oh, I see.
That's been done at this high school before. So I think that depends on, the
And how did it
administrator.
work?
How hard they work, the
No, how
administrator.
did it work?
Not well. The last time it didn't work well.
What was
We-
the last time?
I think
Hector,
no, we didn't mean the high school vice principal, but the middle school vice principal,
High school?
be the high school AD.
oh,
So like he could be VP at the middle school in the mornings and AD in the afternoon at the high school or something.
Like a half. Just numbers wise, it's the smallest school.
yeah, it is. It is.
And Luke is pretty strong.
He's pretty capable, but he's doing two things. He's being the principal and the athletic director. And so, you're right. That is potentially something we could look at. I am concerned. NISA has had, when I was even here before, in the 1990s and in the early 2000s, all of you will remember this. Some of you maybe not so much, but NISA has always been accused by neighboring districts of being top-heavy, having too many administrators. It was the case back then. There were 10 administrators when I was the elementary VP for 11 years, 9 years, excuse me. And so NISA gets accused of that, but then I look at the services we provide the community, we provide services too. There's a lot of needs out there. Susie, you mentioned, what are we going to do about some of the issues? We had an ambulance call at the middle school last week over a child accidentally, it was a very innocent child, had ingested some marijuana-laced brownies. And so to split, it's good to have the support that we have, the admin support, but yet someone would say, well, it's still happening, so, right? Yeah, we can look at those if that's what the board wants us to look at.
They don't have to be certified as an administrator to athletic director,
They do not, but we like them to be, because, in the case of the high school, for example, we have several, well, number one, they're evaluating, right? They're doing evaluations of people, and they could help, they're evaluating coaches. You don't have to be an administrator to evaluate coaches, but you do have to be an administrator to evaluate teachers. And so, what we are hoping is that if we do choose a licensed administrator at the high school as an athletic director, that person can start evaluating some teachers to get that experience in a hopeful preparing them for a larger role administratively down the road.
So we're not completely closed off to somebody who does not have an admin qualification.
No, we could hire someone without it, but I would prefer to hire someone with it for that very reason. I don't know what Mr. Jackman's long-term plan is. He's within a few years of ability to retire, 4 or 5. I don't know what his plan is. If he want to work longer, maybe, I don't know. But the hope is to begin preparing people in-house for a larger role, right? So I think Mr. Jackman chose the VP that he did right now to support some of the areas that he needed immediate support in, feeling like an experienced administrator will help. And then hopefully, depending on who they choose for the AD, if it is a licensed administrator, that person can then begin to be starting to be moved toward a larger role as a VP or a principal. With some solid support needed there. I mean, Mr. Jackman's a good principal, but he needs immediate help in certain areas. Attendance and behavior are two of them. A person who knows how that rolls. Some curriculum support, some teachers who need some immediate attention. So,
How many applicants do we have for that so far?
quite a few.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Megan, do you know?
Or 80.
Maybe
6 or 7?
6 or 7, I think.
7, I think.
Yeah.
No, I think 8 total.
I saw them today.
And how many of those are
certified.
certified? Do we know? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I don't know. I know one currently has an admin license. I know 2, I think I don't know if they currently hold one, but they can get them.
So there are several that don't have it.
And I don't know about
One of our industry candidates does have
Yes.
licensure, admin licensure. In the other districts,
I don't know.
So we're still talking about these as 2 separate positions, right? Is that,
We are, unless there's board movement to consolidate them.
Is there, so I heard what you said your position, it's a flock of 1-to-1. Is there time in your schedule to do any of the athletic director? I don't know that where, if you're stepping away and Matt's gonna be essentially what you were doing, could you potentially take on some of that responsibility? Or, I don't know.
I mean, and that's, there's,
Theoretically.
yeah, theoretically, absolutely, I mean, yes,
If
right?
you don't
And then-
sleep, don't eat, you
But,
know.
yeah,
I
that's
don't know
what
what
I'm
the online school will take up.
saying. Yeah, if we're gonna, I mean, if you absolutely can, and that's part of it, right, is, I mean, we're spread so thin, we do everything if nothing well, right? And so, if potentially if that's what the board wants to look at, then we would look at that, but know that there's going to be some give and take of how well that's done, the support that we're giving. So, but it's, everything's under it.
How's it done in other districts? Do most districts have an individual athletic director?
You mean like comparable size?
Yeah.
Comparable size, so Vail's a comparable size, right? Vail, in comparison to Nissa, has been very bare bones in a lot of aspects. They have a high school principal, no VP, they do have an athletic director, they have a special ed director.
But isn't their athletic director an employee, like a teacher or something
No,
like
I
that?
think he's full-time, but I don't know that.
Does it take all day, every day to do all the athletic director
It's
stuff?
a lot.
I mean, I don't know.
It's a lot because you're arranging transportation for all the, I don't know if it is or not, but you're arranging referees, games, and there is a schedule set early in the year, like early in the year for the games through the year with a few changes. So you're checking grade reports for students, making sure that students are eligible to be participating or attending OSAA trainings and meetings with other ADs to try to coordinate how things are going to go.
No, they attend most of the activities.
They attend a lot of evening stuff, so it is, it's a time-consuming job, right? It's like evening time. The good thing that we like about it, I mean, if we're talking about retention of employees, what NISA does well, at the high school in particular, is we don't overburden one person with every evening activity, right? You have 3 people that can share that. An AD, almost always a VP and a principal kind of alternate. So, most of it, when we're talking about administrative salaries, at every pay scale, in districts that have pay scales, there's a column for elementary vice principal, middle school vice principal, high school vice principal, elementary principal, and the high school, in most of those cases, the high school vice principal, high school principal have an extra stipend between $9,000 to $15,000 for evening duties. So there's a lot of after-school responsibility that the district acknowledges through salaries by that. We don't do that. We do try to place our principals at the high school higher because of those commitments after school that the elementary school doesn't have. But just think about it. I mean, if it's you in that position and you're spending a lot of time down here in the evening, there needs to be something that makes it worthwhile to be away from, to make that commitment.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to jump in. What I was thinking about is looking at the why behind this right now. Right? We have a balanced budget. Are we still looking, we want to cut things because we want to accomplish something else. Right? Which is, I think we really need to look at this because we can't accomplish this next year. Then I can see why we're going through this. Right? And then so I would say that the why behind it, I think that if we're in a big deficit, we don't have a balanced budget, then we start having these hard conversations like who are we going to cut and when. I think we prepare for that, knowing that we have to look at all these things, but and that's what I'm, we want to go through and just start cutting arbitrarily and just say,
In preparation for it.
yeah, but like I said, if there's, if we cut a position and all of a sudden we have, 100,000, that's with insurance and everything, what do you guys want to do with that? And so that's what I would say is what's the why behind it, and what are we trying to accomplish at the end? If it is just we're just trying to cut fat right now, preparing, totally good. And so anyway, that's where my mindset is. What are we trying to get at? Or is it I mean, again, I don't know how to speak out of turn. Like an oversight, we don't trust the system, like, I mean, that's vastly different. And it's like, we want more communication, we want to know everything. I'm here to say,
No,
trying to figure out what the why is behind why we're going here.
And I see what you're talking about. And I don't know that we're necessarily saying that anything has to be done right now. I think for me, the way my mind works, I'm looking into the future thinking, okay, well, when we first started talking about MyTech, it was the board's understanding that that money was going to be used for maybe working on the facilities or whatever the board decided to do.
One-time
And
use payment.
And here we're drawing money from that MyTech to cover costs that maybe we couldn't, which is fine, but then what happens when, for whatever reason, all of a sudden we don't have MyTech anymore? So for me, it's preventative maintenance, right? So I'm not necessarily saying, hey, we gotta change everything right now. I'm just saying, are we considering the options so that if the bottom falls out, we've got a plan? And I'm speaking for me, not everybody else here, but I like to look down the road.
Well, my question is, however much profit we made, is that all going towards Mr. Murray's salary, or is there some extra that we can save?
What
We're
was
gonna
it,
build a soccer field,
160 that was
or
going toward
No.
something.
So I think,
My point was
Salaries.
strictly him.
so right now, so this year, how much was it? 400 and something, right? After we paid the bills. Those went all to the to the HVAC. So 480 went all the way there. Next year,
next
right?
year.
And so now we're taking my salary out of there, and that's the only difference of it. So then we took that other amount of money, I don't know where, or put actually 10,000 so I can advertise in a new office. But those little ones, but we still have, say, I don't know, I guess I'm ballparking. Don't take me, 250,000 if we stay at that level. But again, I'm gonna double that. 250 that we've absorbed through the rest of the system already.
Totally off topic, but Portland Public is closing their online school, right?
I didn't know that. What was the reason?
I don't know, I just heard that really recently.
That's good for us.
Because there's a lot of fun things that we could do with that money if we have the option.
So in our I'm gonna call it approved budget, we budgeted 175 MyTech High students for 1.4 million. And then on our budget with salaries and paying MyTech High and a little bit of advertising and a desk probably, that budget is 1.2. So there's 200,000 there. We did that huge transfer to Fund 440 because we have an HVAC system to pay for. So we could say that went there, or it went to our contingency fund. You gotta think of revenue as just a big ball of money and then pay all of our expenditures, so I can't exactly tell you where exactly it went, but HVAC, contingency.
Have we had any updates on how much the HVAC is going to cost?
Go ahead.
At the board meeting in your packet, I've started a sheet for the HVAC project. This is the very last sheet in your packet. Shows exactly what we've spent so far, what the total project cost is going to be, and where the money's coming from. So you guys can track it every month.
Yeah, I like that. That was nice.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have any more questions on the budget?
I do have concern about the legal. That's a lot of money for legal in the budget.
So that was an estimation, of course, as I had said, and so we hope not to spend that. But I will say this, I've been in communication with them, legal counsel recently, and they do want to schedule a vote with the board for you guys to hear. So the thoughts are kind of waiting for some response first, and then we'll schedule a time for the board to meet and hear options, how to proceed.
I was wondering if there could be maybe some communication as to what activity, what is it that they've accomplished throughout. I mean, because the money that's going out is a lot. Like, what have they
We have the invoice, Crystal.
been
because we
doing?
showed
I've been putting that in the packet. It's
Oh.
the second sheet
Oh.
to the end.
Well, we've
I
seen
apologize
the
for that.
invoice, but
That's all the information I know.
I mean-
So for like,
what's tangible.
yeah, I don't
Have
know.
we gotten a report from them? I'm just looking for a tangible thing that says all these invoices are actually,
What have I accomplished? I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like this. Like what success or what nuance or what has come about. I guess is
If
where.
there's any questions, I can forward those to them, they can be prepared to answer those.
How soon do they want to meet?
I think within the next 2 weeks, probably. As you know, I'll be gone this week, but next week, Tuesday on.
Do we need to set a time now, or?
I think we'll wait. I'll email you all and perhaps set some time, get some suggested times.
Okay, are there any other questions on the budget? You wanna give us an update on the bus accident and?
Mr. Hawkins, you were on site there. Do you have anything you'd like to say? I mean, I guess I will report that I do want to compliment Mr. Hawkins for being there. We were splitting duties here, and he was on site with the driver, providing a lot of reassurance to her and to the students. Many of the parents were nearby, came to pick their students up. We communicated, immediately got a hold of Mr. Cleaver in his office, and they were calling parents to make sure parents picked up students. There were some injured students taken to hospitals. Thankfully, nothing too severe. Driver was pretty shook up and sore. She was able to resume driving within a couple of days. So that was a positive. I mean,
And it was totally not her fault.
No.
go ahead.
So, and I'll just, I don't know how much you guys know, so she was headed north down,
Toward Payette.
yeah, 95, and she was in the left lane, right in the middle. And then the other driver tried to pull straight across all the traffic. The other two cars even had to slam on their brakes on this side, and she thought she could get in front of the bus rather than going in the middle, and that's where she hit, just literally right. The driver sits here as a flat-nosed bus right here.
In the door.
Yeah, there's no door there, but right under there, we're actually where the tire and is that front quarter panel, which luckily there was nobody on the right of her at the time, and the bus, it hit, and then she went off the road at that. What mechanic was that?
It's a new mechanic shop.
Yeah, it's the whatever it was. And there's two trucks there that she hit, which luckily stopped the bus from going any further. And amazing people at this mechanic autobody shop. They were there within a couple seconds, ripping the doors open, getting our kids out, throwing the bays open, getting our kids in there and safe. I mean,
The shop.
our driver said it was like, because he was out there, it was literal seconds that he was in there getting our kids out, making sure everything was safe, and basically shut down the whole shop for us and have all of the kids in there. And so it was actually really amazing.
Do we need to send them a thank you card or?
Yeah, oh yeah, and I was gonna go down there, and, but Phil was on site too right away, and we there's 3 kids going to the hospital. I took the driver to the hospital as well, and it was just a miracle. Nobody was really hurt, especially if you saw the damage. The bus is totaled, so.
Is that what you have with insurance?
I don't know, and we weren't able to talk to the driver there. After keeping that pretty separated, we kind of really got the other driver away immediately and to the hospital, but we're getting all that information from ISP. So.
Can you get us, once somebody, Megan, maybe the information of the body shop so we can send them a thank you card or something?
Yeah. I think all the kids should do something for it. I mean, it was amazing, those guys and what they
Well,
did.
who's the coach for that team?
It was Osvaldo Gonzalez,
You
and
can have the girls.
and Mr. Fournier was there as well. And so even Mrs. Cuevas at the middle school, she was driving by and saw it. Boom, and so she was in there helping kids, and it was really cool. Just everybody just boom. So it was a bad situation, but because of great adults and the driver, she did amazing. Not overreacting, not trying to do and really kept those kids safe and that. And she knew if I change course or try to, they might hit the side, or she might, and so just really her actions kept everybody safe. It was-
And the kids that got injuries, how badly they,
Yeah, they, so a couple of them, some head things, possible concussion, wound and bloody nose. I mean, just hitting in the front of the bus. And, yeah, or the seat, I'm sorry, the seat. And a lot of it was kind of that trauma of it as well, right? And a lot of kids were scared and their parents were, called and were there pretty darn quick. And so, but yeah. So.
And Susie, you did suggest that all the kids on that bus sign a card.
well, as I said, if I can write a card, but if somebody will need to get the kids to sign.
I want to get them a gift basket, or
I mean,
something
I'd
just
be
to
happy
be like,
to do that.
yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, we do need to get past.
Yeah.
I mean, it would mean a lot
Yeah.
to them to have a card from all the kids and from
From the board,
us.
a true
I
friend
don't know
of
what's
this.
called, but do we need to talk to them and get the kids to make a card, then I can put together, okay, and you and I can coordinate, and make a gift basket, and
Really cool.
maybe have a card from all the board and stuff,
Yes, that would be very nice.
because they didn't have to do that.
They really didn't, and they went above and beyond, and so maybe a couple of the people they just fixed too. So it was like,
They were sitting there waiting to
yeah,
get
there was,
started.
so.
And the guy was actually so close because he was on his way to get one of the vehicles that she hit. So had it been like 2 seconds earlier,
He could have been.
he could have been hit.
So it's by that Maverick on the.
It's between the Maverick and the Shell. It's on the right there.
That's right.
It's just almost kind of across from the Shell, just a little bit.
On the side of the Maverick, correct?
Yeah, on that side though.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Across from my coffee shop,
Yeah.
on the border or something, Borders coffee shop or something. I know coffee shops. So.
Right by Shell.
We're gonna have to get a new bus.
Yeah.
That'll come your way soon.
But the insurance should pay for a lot of it. Hopefully.
We don't
A
know.
portion of it. It was an older
Portion.
bus. It's
It's an old bus.
We have a transportation fund though, right?
Yes, we do.
Which is really good.
And we're not getting electric buses?
No.
Not
No.
until they're-
Not
We
yet.
want to, but we
I want
just
to, but we
can't.
just, yeah, we don't have the infrastructure and there are so many things
The Air
for
Force
it.
one is electric.
We're not gonna do it.
No, this one will be diesel. This will be the last run of diesels. And so it will be grandfathered in, so that it's kind of
I mean, they're
in
gonna
our
make us do
favor.
electric buses?
Propane.
Propane or electric. And so, but yeah, this one will be diesel and,
We had a fleet of buses that would take more power than the city of Mesa itself.
yeah, it's crazy. I
I'm not
mean,
You couldn't drive all the way to Umatilla without stopping and charging it, could you?
Yeah.
On
No,
top
I don't think
of,
so.
top of cabbage, right? Because then you have charging.
Oh, do
So you
they?
get stuck in the snow up there, that'd be great.
And all the kids are sitting there freezing.
for a couple
Charging
hours.
station.
And so that's,
Around Emily,
yeah. But yeah, nobody wants to really go and fill up a propane bus, and
I
so,
always think if you hit, if somebody hit by the propane tank.
yeah. And they have things that are very safe, but yeah. But anyway, so it will be diesel, and it will be the last of the diesels made. So,
Does anybody have any more questions?
Just glad to know that the kids are all right and the driver's fine.
I was so proud and pleased with our driver. She was amazing. And having been in car accidents, if any of you have been, you know it's just a matter of seconds or less. Your reaction time. She was amazing. And a lot of people have reached out and helped her because it is very traumatic going through something like that, not just for yourself, but then you have the added concern of a bunch of students that you're worried about. So we were really pleased with her and all of the support team that was on site. And so, yeah, that was awesome.
And it's wonderful to hear about how many people help.
Yeah.
Because that is something that we hadn't heard.
And
Or
that's
I
what,
hadn't heard.
that's what being in a small district's all about.
exactly.
That's why we're here. Okay, we'll adjourn this work session until we start the regular board meeting.